all nations generally have a very soft corner. They love Tibet. They want to support Tibet. But what is the way forward, sir? Do you think there is a way forward? Do you think that Tibet will be free? Because we would love to see a free Tibet. But
Yes.
what can India do? What can the world do? Because China is not going to just simply leave one day. So they're not going to do that.
Now, free Tibet and independent Tibet are two different things. Because independent, then you are talking about an independent nation. Free also includes freedom, without the nation being sovereign in that sense. So one of the biggest concern for the Chinese government has always been sovereignty. When they can want to expand the whole of South China Sea, then why not occupy Tibet? So sovereignty has always been a major issue with the Chinese. And since the occupation of Tibet by China, there have been a lot of problems for the Tibetans, whether it's in terms of freedom of religious practice or the 10 long years of Cultural Revolution where they destroyed everything old from 1966 to 76. So there have been the whole issue was whether we will be able to preserve the identity of the Tibetans. If the identity of the Tibetans are not there, it doesn't make sense to have a country or a people without those values. So we are talking about the global significance of Tibet, not just from the historical perspective, but also the geostrategic importance of Tibet. Tibet being located in the center of Asia, bordering so many countries, Tibet being an unexploited land, with a lot of resources because it's huge, 2.37 million square kilometers. Some say 2.5 million square kilometers, which is about a quarter of China. And then you also talk about Tibet's importance from an ecological or environmental point of view, because Tibet is now called as the third pole, roof of the world, watchtower of Asia. It extends much beyond Tibet, in the whole region. Even Indian monsoon is decided by the jet streams that flow over the Tibetan plateau and the warming up of the Pacific in the form of El Nino. All these contribute to us, which are going to be the depression areas in India, which are going to be the hot places in India. Wherever there's depression, the clouds come in and then you have more rainfall. So all these have a lot of implications because of the Tibetan plateau, the high Tibetan plateau. So those are also there. And then we have always considered ourselves as a repository of one part of ancient Indian wisdom. We transliterated every available Sanskrit and Pali texts, Buddhist texts, into Tibetan from 8th to 13th century before Buddhism almost vanished out of India. And today we are very proud to say that Tibetan language is the only language from which you can learn Buddhism in its true essence. Right now we are in the process of transliterating it back into Sanskrit, the original text. So the languages are very similar. And so we are very proud to say that we are a repository of one part of ancient wisdom, which is manifested in the messages of His Holiness the Dalai Lama through peace and compassion, all those values which human beings need. And particularly at this point of time, as we speak, of course, we hear more about Israel, Gaza, now Lebanon, Hezbollah, Iran, all that, and then Ukraine, Russia. But there are some 55 conflicts going on, violent conflicts going on around this world as we speak. So the message of peace and non-violence is very important. What's happening in Gaza? Are we really resolving the present crisis, or are we creating more problems for future? Because all the young kids are going to witness all the destruction that's happening with properties and lives. So we have always believed that if there has to be a lasting solution to any conflict, then it can only be through non-violence. Violence will beget more violence, as Mahatma Gandhi ji also said that an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. So this is never a solution. Then when there's too much violence, then people are driven by emotions, not by logic, not by reason. And this escalates into more violence. What's happening in Middle East is very, very sad. So that is why the understanding of ancient Indian wisdom in the form of understanding the concept of oneness of humanity, whether we are black or white or yellow or whatever, we are all human beings. All 8 billion people are human beings in this with the same intellect. So if we can think on those concepts and also think about the interdependent nature of our existence, We are all social animals. Humans cannot survive singularly or individually. We have to depend on a community, and the larger community is the global stage. So if we understand these concepts, that something that happens in one part of the world has its impact on the other part of the world, then we will be more responsible people, including leaders like Putin or Xi or whoever it is. If they can think on those lines, then this world will naturally be a more peaceful world. Otherwise, it's going to lead to a lot of catastrophic consequences if what is happening is true. Just this morning, I was reading about United States going to rework on its nuclear programs because there's too much threat from Russia and China, or North Korea for that matter. So all this dynamism in global politics is also not taking the world in the right direction or the positive direction. So my recommendation is for the Europeans also. I keep telling them, okay, you support Ukraine with armaments and all that. That's good, because Ukrainian people are also very brave to be able to, resist and defend their country. It is very important. Otherwise, it'll have consequences elsewhere in the world about China's ambitions in Taiwan, or maybe Russia's ambition elsewhere also. But if we think from a non-violent perspective, the only way to handle China or bring China on its knees is give them less business. So you talk about 27 EU countries, they import $600 billion worth of goods and services from China and export only 200 billion. So you're talking about a 400 billion trade imbalance every single year. Even in India, despite all the rhetoric and belligerence on the border, trade is going up, which is not good.
$125 billion per year, sir.
Yes. And India's foreign exchange reserve is going up a little bit as of yesterday. So, but then trade imbalance with China is increasing all the time.
That's right.
And right now, China needs all that money. There were a year or 1.5 years ago, China was talking about $3.6 trillion worth of foreign exchange reserve, which they splurge on Belt and Road Initiative, on space technology, on military technology, and high-end equipment, maybe even microchips, because now they are getting strangled by tariffs from the United States. So they are doing things which the free world does not want them to do. And all these are be augmented by the business surplus they have. So now there are serious issues about overcapacity. Tariffs from US government, Canadian government, 100% on Chinese EV cars. And just yesterday, the European Union also decided to impose this tariff of 17 to 34%, 35% over and above the 10% that they levy on imports. So those things are happening, and China's now pivot is more towards the global south. And the question is, how much purchasing power does the global south have? It's mostly the Europeans, because they want both their hegemonistic ambitions in the region and fuel defense expenditure by all the countries around China. At the same time, they want European market and American market, because it's not possible to get both. And I think the Europeans are also waking up to that. America has learned it the hard way since 2000, when Clinton decided to, or at the beginning of Bush Jr.'s, tenure, to include China in the World Trade Organization, free trade agreement with United States, and then also China getting the opportunity to host what they call as the coming out party, the Olympics, and that also resulted in the U.S. Tibet policy of 2002. The U.S. is the only country that has a law on Tibet. So U.S. has learned the hard way. We all hope that if we make China part of the global community, they'll become more responsible. But unfortunately, today, China has gone in a direction where when the whole world is moving towards multiculturalism, China is the only one that's moving towards uniculturalism.